Yes, it is, Joe. It stopped recording, so I just kicked it off again, mea culpa. I went back and forth between two machines, and I think on the second machine I blew it. So thanks for the heads up on that one. Yes, it's being recorded. Yes, we will push it up to YouTube or the like, and gosh, we'll have a good time. Okay? And then the final thing is keep in mind, this is just four of us who are just going to give you some ideas of our experiences and all that kind of thing. So, you know, anybody wants a refund, you can get it. Okay. All right, and absolutely expect rings and whatever other noises from all of us. Okay, again, the topics, and really we just kind of threw it into one of the areas. So, developing a mailing list. Why develop it? What do we do with it? All that. Jim's going to talk about that, and probably beer over IP.
My specialty.
Yeah, absolutely. Calling and scripting, Jeff's going to talk about that, and then the web-based social media. I'm going to talk about that to a degree, but I'm not going to get too much into the technical stuff because, quite honestly, not my strongest suit in some things. And then finally, Scott's going to wrap up with lunch and hours, chambers, basically events, the whole concept behind that. Again, all of us will kind of join in on all that fun silliness. So. Now, as you can see, it's a really excellent PowerPoint. So, and I'm also going to ask when we turn it over to the presenters, Jim, if you could give a little idea of where your perspective is and a little bit about your background and all that. And with that, I'm shutting up and letting Jim take over.
All righty. Well, I started in sales in the late 80s in my dad's janitorial service, and don't laugh, it's a clean business. And at the time, we did not have CRMs and tools like Salesforce.com. So the concept that I carry with me today is to collect the information and act on it, and that leads into developing a mailing list. I went through the Daytimer, I believe it is, and Franklin planners, and so you've got the little pen and paper section in the back for names and addresses and phone numbers, and then went to index cards where one of them was by date and one of them was by company, and that was my tickler system. Then I graduated to DBase 4 and had a CRM that I'm created in DBase 4, and that would at least allow me to print my list and carry it with me and update it on computer, then print it back out and carry it with me, which is good because you can't carry a PC that weighs a lot with you, and laptops weren't really invented at the time. And then I got into some of these Lotus Organizer and then started using ACT. I used ACT for about 10 years. It's a great program, and it lets you do mailings by group. The problem I ran into with ACT is that it doesn't do a great job of synchronizing with Outlook, and I use Outlook now, and I have a little iPhone, and so it's not Salesforce.com. I don't really see a need for Salesforce.com or the fancier tools, because the way I develop my mailing list is to sincerely get to know the people as best as possible, so if they make it to my contacts, it's not a spam. It's not a list that I've purchased from a list broker, which I've done before, most of which bounce or prove to be something not in my market area. So when I go about developing my mailing list, I like to go meet people at an event and physically exchange cards, and then do something like take a little card scanner and maybe after I get a stack of them, unless it's just a one-off, then I'll scan in the cards, and then it requires a little bit of work to do the optical character recognition, and clean up what you get from the card scan, but it's not a very expensive device if you are doing things in bulk. I've got real reservations about sending out bulk email because I know how I feel about getting so many emails every day. Not to pick on Connect-wise, but I got a solicitation and phone call just before this meeting to try to convert me to lab tech, which is fine and dandy, but I just don't want to be spamming people and expect others to treat me the same way. As far as how many clients I have, we're a small shop, 150. It depends on what day of the week it is. And as far as what I market to, well, maybe I can share with you an example of how I've developed a list and gotten in touch with people using a mailing list, because I actually did a group mailing. Bob, I'm going to see if I can get fancy here and share this secondary monitor and see what happens. Share now.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see if it shows up on the radar screen. Yeah, there it is. So let me put Outlook into view over there. And if I go to my contacts, then what I like to do is give everything a category, and I've got way too many, but here's an example of this event, the disaster recovery. That's something that we pulled off last Thursday, and
without a disaster?
Disaster. We had more than one disaster at the disaster recovery event, which is kind of comical. Not to share public information, but this is my actual contacts, and so each one of these people I've personally met. So it's not something where I bought a list and spammed them, and just for privacy's sake, I'm going to hide the email addresses, phone numbers, just so no one starts picking on them. But the point is, they are grouped into categories, because what I did for a follow-up is after the event was over, we had recorded video, and we went ahead and sent out a link to the video for people that either registered and didn't attend, or people that were interested in attending, and so we don't have any type of a newsletter, and others do. We may start one day, but I've been pretty adamant about not sending out email unless I've got something to say, and also if I send out an individual email, then I'm going to customize it, and I'm going to know something about the person, and it's not going to be something that I just feel like I have to generate every month on a monthly basis. So I've got a comment about the golden rule: treat folks the way you want to be treated, and that's the way I like to operate. Do you want to see an example of a mail merge in Outlook, or how I qualify a lead?
Yeah, how do you qualify a lead?
Well, what's the name of a company we might call on? Someone want to suggest something, just arbitrarily? Hopefully someone that's in North Carolina that might actually be a lead.
ABC Appliance Company.
I don't know if they exist, though.
Yeah, to throw a little bit of 2 cents from my perspective, we differ a little bit from what Jim's doing, in the sense that we're very much aware and concerned about being considered spammers. But a big part of what we do is we do our newsletter, our e-newsletter, and we've got about 2,300 people that receive that, and what we do is if we join, for example, a chamber group, one of the things we look for is whether or not we can get access to their email list. Now, we send an email out ahead of time that says, hey, we're looking to add, please tell us if you don't. That we do not do the double, where they have to approve it twice or whatever. If they don't say, they're interested in, that they want to drop off, we add them to the mailing list, and we haven't had any real issues with that. But we will not purchase email lists. We will not, if they haven't joined an organization and made the email address available to that organization, we don't use them in that way.
All right, TJ, I see yours, but I'm going to go ahead and go with Scott's because I already know Randy Whitmire. And
Jim, he showed up on about page 8 on the quick Google search I did, so I just grabbed the contact details from there.
sure, and so he was invited to the disaster recovery event, and so what I do to qualify him is I take the name, and he's already linked in with me, and I think, yeah, he's already linked in with me, but if you go to LinkedIn and you search for people.
Jim, do you have just the basic account? Yeah, I can see you do. You're not using an upgraded account at all.
I use the free one because I have no need to do anything but look these people up, and it's been my experience that once I look someone up, almost invariably, they are in LinkedIn. Like I'll go to Triangle Business Journal, which is a business publication in my area, and there will be an article, Randy Whitmire says such and such. Well, I've got the name. They're not going to print the email address. They're not going to print the phone number. But you bet your last dollar they'll be in LinkedIn, and if I link to another partner or president and they see my link come in and then they see Jim Ray, president of News River Networks, then they don't know whether I'm some corporate conglomerate or someone living in a 2001 Dodge Grand Caravan down by the river, and they will link up with me every time. So it's a back door. It gets me past the gatekeeper every time, and then I click on V-Card, boom. I've got his email address, I've got his phone number. I'm in business.
But that only pops up if you're connected with them. You don't get to see their V-card if you're not connected.
That's true. However, if I read about someone and we're not connected, the trick I use is, again, I don't want to do anything deceitful, but I am able to interpret what type of relationship we have, and let's say Randy and I are not connected, then the trick I use, and this is a very, very important trick, I link to someone, I believe it's as a comrade, or it's like the first choice. Let's see if I can find someone. Let's see, that's email.
Oh, don't link with that guy.
Yeah, Trouble City. Let's see, how do I need to find someone I'm not linked with. And where's that thing that says you suggests links?
Brian just suggested to use him.
Okay, Brian. Okay, good. Thank you, Brian. All right. Now, that's not a Smith or a Jones for your last name, so I'm going to have to look carefully. Okay, so I'm going to look for Brian. I just read an article about him, and I want to link. Now, I'm going to say connect. colleague. And it's not that Brian worked for Neuse River Networks. I interpret that as, all right, well, you're the president of your company and I'm the president of mine, therefore we're colleagues. That's my interpretation. LinkedIn might not like it. And then if I really want to help the chances of Brian accepting my invitation, then I might preface it, I've read about you in the blah, blah, blah magazine, and you know, say something that would be meaningful, because that's going to help cement a relationship. And it's my experience that if I send that invitation, most of the time folks will connect. That's how I develop my list. That totally bypasses the secretary gatekeeper. Totally bypasses it. And I only get qualified leads because I can Google Brian's company, and then I can find out if it's someone that I want to do business with, because I look for nice people. I look for companies that are a nice size. And really, I mean, I don't turn down business. They don't have to be a super huge company. I just don't turn down business. But I do like to qualify it a little bit, because, you know, basically you don't want to. If you sign up with someone that's bad news, then you're going to be living it every day until you get rid of them. So that's the method I use to qualify. And then if we want to try the specialty fulfillment center and go through that for TJ, then what I do is I would go ahead and create a contact, and it's busy work. It's busy work, but if we go back to the website, then if we look for contact us, then we can get some information and put it in my CRM, and see that this CRM for me replicates with my iPhone. All my sales leads go with me every time I go out the door. That's something that ACT could not do for me. It would sync up when I get back, but it would not be in real time. And then I do parse out the data. You know, again, it's busy work, but I do put stuff in the right pigeonhole. And then what I'll do is I'll take the company name, since I don't have a person. Well, first of all, let's go back to the website, and presidents have egos. They're going to have a big about paragraph about how great they are somewhere. And they will post it on their website most of the time. It's not under About Us. It's not under Contact Us. And if you can't find it, here's where you go. So that's all we've got. IT consultant Blake R. But if I really want to make inroads, I'd best meet Blake R. And I don't know Blake, if he's attending today. Hey, Blake. But I mean, I would use the same technique to go ahead and link in and be honest with them. Say, hey, I just wanted to get to know you, learn a little bit about your company. I mean, you don't have to have a grand story to tell. Most people do connect. Now, I see Jeff and Rob, y'all are friends with Blake, so he's probably someone we know. He might be on this seminar now, but it's a good way to get past the gatekeeper, and it's a good way to avoid spamming people, because I had much rather send someone an email directly and develop a relationship directly, and then use the follow-up and say whatever it is I need to say.
Well, actually, just let me interrupt a second. This is Jeff. What that connection thing said over there, Jim, was that you're connected to me, and then one of Blake's connections is connected to me, but we don't know who that person is.
Well, you know, I'm pretty bold, and so I'm just going to go ahead and, okay, here's a rub. Here's a rub. We're not secondary connections, and I can't connect to tertiary connections without getting introduced.
Right.
So it's not always going to work. It's been my experience that it has worked most of the time. So in that case, you can either do premium account and pay for so many of the send emails. I don't. I just might move on, and you know, unless it's someone I really, really want to meet, then I might move on. But let's just go through the example of getting introduced through a connection. And I know this Jeff dude, so I'm going to click there and say, would like to meet.
But it would be hard. What I'm saying is it would be hard for me because I don't know the connection between me and Blake.
Well, and that's where some people don't know how to use LinkedIn too, and I've had a friend of mine that's connected to someone else I want to know, and they just responded to me, and they didn't realize they had to do something to so it's not always going to work. And
actually, I was going to say, in this case, what would happen, Jeff, is you actually can look Blake up, and you'd see the
connection. Right.
Right, you'd see the connection. But here's the one thing that I think is kind of interesting here, is when you're looking at trying to put together who you're going to contact and how you're going to contact them. By the way, yeah, I put that poll up there. If you guys want to answer that just for yucks and giggles. There's kind of three approaches, and I think one's an extreme on one side, the other's an extreme on the other side. The one extreme is that you blitz everything everywhere. You buy every mailing list in sight, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, Brian, we got to go woot on this. And I think that because you come off as a spammer, I think that's kind of challenging. Okay. All right, we got some sharing that are changing. Second. And then the next thing is that on the other extreme is you're going to analyze every single possible contact within an inch of its life before you connect with them. And I think both of those extremes are dangerous. One, because you're going to be so flamed because of all the people you're trying to connect with for all the wrong reasons. And on the other extreme, you'll be a stalker for one person. You know. So I think where it's that middle of the road, and one of the nice things, especially on the LinkedIn side, as Jim was showing, you've got some relatively simple ways to do some research on people, and I do think, and actually I didn't really think of it as directly until just now, I do think that LinkedIn is a good way to bypass the gatekeepers, because I think that LinkedIn is managed by most people themselves. They don't have that delegated to other folks, except, you know, if you're working for, or if they're working for an Amish guy, you know, they're going to delegate it. Whereas what we do is, yeah, we take advantage of certain lists, but we're a member of the organization that provides the list. And we're very clear to say, hey, we don't want to spam you. And when we contact people, we don't contact people about what we sell or what we do. We try to contact them more, build communication and build value.
Okay, that's a great point, is if you contact someone and try to sell your shiny new mousetrap, buy mine, it's super cool, then it's going to turn people off. And if I say, well, hey, I want to connect with you because I like to know the other business folks in the community, that is a good reason to connect. And I ask for an introductory appointment to meet, not to try to sell them anything. And I might have the slowest sales cycle in all eternity, but by the time I get to the person, I've got a relationship with them, and people don't change just because someone walks in the door. However, if you really develop a relationship with them, when they do change, you're going to be in the chosen group.
Yeah, I mean, it gets back to your networking 101. You know, when we go to networking events, when they tell, job seekers, they would tell job seekers the worst thing you can do is to walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, give me a job."
Right.
You know.
Someone sends a resume to you and doesn't say what they want to do. We get that, and I am usually nice and respond, because not having a job is one of the most awful experiences anyone can go through, and so I try to show a little bit of compassion. But the people that do it right and show some respect and show that they're not just spamming you with their resume, they get a better response. And I can't say I respond to everybody, but I do try to. But I mean, think of how you feel when you get the solicitations, and think about how the other people are going to feel if you try to sell them something up front before you even know what they need. Because the Sandler Sales Institute training that I went through, their President's Club, teaches folks to listen and ask questions, not to do the traditional Dale Carnegie feature benefit spew and vomit in the faces of your prospects. If they're not interested in buying something, then don't try to sell it to them. And if you listen and let them list what their needs are, you're going to learn something, and you're going to be able to guide your conversation, and you're going to be able to close more sales.
Cool. Now, just let me see if I can show the poll. So I think the poll should be shown to everybody soon. Right now we had 20 people who responded, and almost everybody is your chief cook and bottle washer.
Yep.
Which probably means you have a technical background, which probably means that this is painful to do these things.
You have to love it. You have to gear yourself up to love it. You have to love cold calls. You have to love hearing no. If you don't, you will be miserable in sales.
Well, Jim, I don't know if I love hearing no, but you have to be able to put up with it.
And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that you're going to hear 80% no's and 20% yeses, or whatever your closing ratio is. But it's important not to get discouraged, and it's also important to have the continuous sales pressure, because I've gone through times in the 15 years that I've been in business where I haven't made the sales calls that I really should be making, and then guess what? There's a natural attrition, and company gets bought out, brings in their own people, and then all of a sudden I'm caught with my pants down and don't have any income that month.
Milo, I'm going to comment on your thing. If you don't like that stuff, shouldn't you just focus on a different avenue? That's one of the biggest challenges to me, is there's a difference between I'm not going to do that because I've got a better strategy, and I'm not going to do that because I really don't want to. And you got to make sure it's not the second, because I'm the easiest person in the world to fool, especially for me. Yeah, Scott, good point as far as the research, absolutely.
Yeah, in the electronic age we live in, there's absolutely no reason for it to be a cold call anymore between, LinkedIn searches and, Google somebody's name for 30 seconds before you pick up the phone, and at least you've got a wild idea of what you can talk to them about. There's tons of opportunity.
Yeah.
This is Jeff. I have a question for Milo, because it is a common not complaint, it's not the right word I'm thinking of, but it's a common theme among IT professionals, or anybody really who has an engineering type background, is to be a little nervous in making a cold call. But what do you do in networking situations? Do you even go to them? Do you like to go to like Chamber of Commerce events or things like that? I mean, how do you respond to those types of things? Yeah, you do that. So really, realistically, it shouldn't take. Yeah, I agree with Jim. It's overrated. I mean, I think you should consider it the same type of thing. You know, if you're going to pick up the phone and call somebody to try to get some business, just try to relate to it like it's like you're networking. Yeah, invite them out for a beer.
You get to know them that way, and I've even heard the golf course, the reason people play golf is not because they enjoy the game of golf, because they like to meet someone to determine if they're going to cheat on their score or get all bent out of shape and throw their clubs. And do you want to do business with that type of person? It's a lot easier to find out that you don't up front instead of finding out there's some kind of a character flaw and then having that manifest itself in a bad relationship in the future, or a lawsuit, or a non-pay, or just a headache account.
Cool. Yeah, and one more thing, if you are a business owner, you've got to be able to be out in public.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that, maybe not sell, maybe not cold call, maybe not whatever, but at any point in time, someone could ask you a question about what you do. I mean, I was at the dentist this morning because I have to have an emergency root canal. And I noticed that one of the monitors at the dentist place was screwed up. And I talked to him, and I ended up giving him my card. I doubt he's going to use us because he seemed to be relatively okay with his current, yeah. Yeah. Now I'm going to get real messages from space finally in my head. But it was something where, you know, he's got my card now. My suspicion is nothing's going to happen, but if it does, yeah, who knows? You just got to be ready for that. Yeah, Bluetooth.
So Bob, did you get his contact info, and do you follow up on that typically? Is that something you put in your little tickler file for, 30, 60 days out?
Yeah, and that's a good point, and I'll talk a little bit about that during my part with the web-based social media, but there's a cost for contact. There's a cost for resource or researching. There's a cost for connecting or contacting people. So I'll budget that a little bit in the sense that, do I add them to the newsletter list? Do I call them? Do I try to set up a follow-up meeting? So depending upon how possible that contact is, I may do it in different levels as far as what I'm going to do, what I'm going to follow up. So and we'll talk about that in the next session.
I'm curious. Jim said you're using really just Outlook. You're not using Act anymore. There are a lot of tools built into the ConnectWise and the AutoTask. I'm curious if you guys are using those. We're not.
I am not, and it's ConnectWise is a fine product. I've been using it since 2007 along with Kaseya, and it does have the CRM. I've tinkered with it. The reason I don't use ConnectWise is because I am hosted and don't have, shame on me for not using the latest version, but I don't have the latest version of Exchange running, and I cannot integrate my Exchange server with ConnectWise at this point in time.
I can introduce you to an IT company that can fix that problem.
I bet you can. And it's just a time thing, and it's a choice. And as long as I've got my contacts with me on my iPhone, and I can at any given moment have someone's name, address, phone number, email address pop up on my radar screen wherever I am, I'm happy. Could I be doing a better job? Yeah. Am I happy with what I've got? Yeah.
Cool. I want to comment on Reggie's question or point. You guys rate the quality of the contacts. We all do. It's a human nature. The question is there any kind of formality to it? And yeah, I mean, you can go as simple. Again, it gets back to how much time do you want to spend on the system or the process, and how much time do you want to spend doing it. There's no right or wrong answer. But it's kind of like what I think Scott was saying, as far as do you contact someone immediately? Do you just get it so that there's a routine contact with them? The like. And then also there's contacts who are connectors. How do you leverage them? I believe there is such a thing as doorway amnesia. I love having these meetings where everybody says, yes, we're going to do this, yes, we're going to contact or do whatever, and then you walk through the doorway and nobody remembers anything. You know?
I was going to show you something in Outlook regarding
Okay.
how I go about doing it, and let me see if I can share that real quick.
Okay. And then we're going to move on to the next topic after that.
Okay. For the category, I've got way too many of them, but if you go down to the prospect department, I try to get an idea of what they are. Are they looking for disaster recovery? Are they looking for cabling? Are they too small? Are they multi-site? And you could have one for PETA as well, which would probably be analogous to do not call. So I generally try to delete PETAs from mine, but that's how I go about somehow qualifying them and making sure I'm calling who I want to call with. Or on. So. All right, Bob. How do I unshare? You just want to take control and...
Okay. I'm going to go back over to the...
Here's stop sharing.
Oh, you're sharing? I'm sorry.
I was, and I just clicked. I found the stop sharing button, and so...
Okay.
Yeah, PETA, pain in the ass. That's right.
Okay, let's move on. And as we saw in this conversation, we're going to kind of go spread over everything. So absolutely cool. Calling and scripting. Jeff, do you want to introduce yourself and kick it off?
Yeah, sure. This is Jeff Adzima. You guys probably see my name on the list quite frequently. I've been in business about 20 years. And to start my business, I knocked on doors. You know, back in the early 90s, most small businesses realistically only had 1 or 2 computers. So it wasn't, there were no real networks to speak of or anything. So it was easy to knock on somebody's door and say, hey, do you have a problem with your computer? You know, if you do, and I can't fix it, I won't charge you. So it was a way for me to get my foot in the door and meet some people and do some work. Obviously, things have changed drastically in 20 years, and I'm not a guru on this at all, so I want to just lay it on the line. And
Half of it's covered by the door.
excuse me? Oh, the four presenters had a dress rehearsal yesterday, and I missed the dress rehearsal. So this is completely off the cuff for me as I'm talking about this. But prior to starting my own business, I was an engineer working for Raytheon, but my real love was the theater. So I loved performing on stage, and I have no problem, you know, talking to people or, you know, just creating a casual conversation in whatever it takes. So I think if you want to sell your business or sell your product or sell your service, and you're nervous about approaching people or being in front of people, then I would recommend writing something up about your company, create an elevator speech for yourself, something that is like 2 to 3 minutes long, and practice reciting that or memorize that. Practice that in front of the mirror. You know, or if you're even nervous about talking to yourself in the mirror, then maybe you ought to pick up a new line of business. No, maybe you ought to, you know, do it for somebody that you know. You know, just continually memorize it, try to repeat it, so that you can get rid of the nerves, or at least have certain bullet points in your head that you know what you want to talk about when you meet somebody for the first time. I can't stress enough just an elevator speech. I probably had 10 different ones over the past 20 years because our business changes so much. But you want to constantly refine that and fine-tune it and make sure that it's what you want to get across to somebody in 1 or 2 minutes. So I would highly recommend that. I read a lot of business books too. So right off the bat, I just finished a great book. I don't know if anybody's heard of this guy. His name is called, I think his last name is Lencioni, Patrick Lencioni. He wrote he has a series of business books out there, but I just finished one called Getting Naked. Let me get the full title of this book. Getting Naked, a business fable about shedding the 3 fears that sabotage client loyalty. And it's just great. It's a little fable about somebody's writing a lot about getting naked. Yeah, it's a great book. You know, and I just think that if you can read that and remember those principles and theories, what I love about it is the guy walks into a business and he doesn't sell at all. He just starts consulting right away. He starts working, and he just freely gives away information and business, and you're just gonna. It's the old adage that you know, you get a little bit farther with honey than you do with I forget it right now, but anyway, you know, I think realistically I wrote down some bullet points here for calling and scripting, and I think the number one thing to follow here is that you need the right attitude. In business or in general, if your attitude comes across on the phone, you know, people can tell how you feel. You know, even in email is a horrible way to communicate because somebody's reading it obviously not with the same emotion that you wrote it. But, you know, I wouldn't discount coming up with a really flowery type of response email for somebody if you're having trouble getting a hold of them on the phone so that you can follow up with some kind of email. But so attitude is really comes across. You have got to always be at the top of your game. You have always got to have the sun shining on your face, or you're not gonna get anywhere. The second thing I wrote down here is diligence, and Jim kind of touched on this a little bit in his thing about loving the answer no. Well, I wouldn't necessarily, you know, say that I love the answer no, but you got to be ready for that, and you got to be willing to go above and beyond that no. So you have got to take that no, or take that I'm not interested, or not right now, whatever it is, and be able to turn that around. So again, and it's not so much scripting here, it's just basically having those bullet points in your head to know what to do and know what to say when somebody says something that about your offering. The third thing I have is, again, it builds up on that. There's actually 2 points here. Don't give up, and don't take no for the first answer. And you know, just continue to persevere. Obviously, there's probably going to come a point. I've got this client that I've been trying to sell a solution to for the past 6 months. I started in January. It's a local animal hospital here in my community, and I've met with these guys countless times. I can't even tell you. It's ad nauseum, over and over. I've changed the contract, the proposal. I've gone back and forth, but you know what? She's a nice person. She calls me back. We talk. It's just probably the way they are. And I don't know if they're the right kind of client that I want to deal with on a long-term basis, but they've never written me a check, so it may just be that I do this job for them, and if they pay me right away, then they become a number 1 A-type client for me. And it's just the way that they work. So perseverance. Don't give up. Ask lots of questions. This is a big thing in business in general. Business coaches are known for this. very good business coach will never ever tell you what to do. A great business coach will probe, constantly asking questions out of you, constantly, because realistically, the answer lies within the client. The client knows the answer to their problems. They know the answer to their questions. You, as a good consultant, really all you have to do is continually probe and ask the right questions. You need to guide them, obviously, as the IT pro and into their decision. But when you formulate your responses to people and how you call them and how you talk to them, you're going to get way more out of people by asking deep, probing questions about them and their business. And if you hook somebody on a phone call or by knocking on a door or in conversation, the more questions you ask, the more they're interested. People love kind of talking about themselves and their business, realistically. So if you engage them that way, just keep asking and keep engaging. So, as we move down after engaging in people and engaging in what they do, and please, if anybody has anything, I see lots of stuff coming across the chat room here, so if anybody has anything to throw out, please do, because believe me, I am not an expert at this. I'm just reiterating what I do and how I do it.
We're monitoring it for you too, Jeff. We'll let you know if there's something we need an answer for before you move on.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
Jeff, can I point out one thing that we found? In the 5 years or so we've been doing this, and plus the 30 or so years before this I've been in IT, most IT people are jerks. Okay?
That's right.
Shut up, man! No, whether or not that's true, but it's definitely perceived. And probably 2/3 of our business has come to us because the previous supporters didn't relate and didn't support their client well enough. And by support, it's not necessarily technical. So that whole thing about being able to be honest, be nice, be pleasant, share your knowledge, that's not fluffy talk. That is not just a, hey, wouldn't it be swell to make your life easier? That's part of your service that you're talking about providing, is someone that your customer can actually get along with. So I just wanted to interject that.
Absolutely. In fact, you hit the nail on the head. For a client who's just now I'm engaging with, he said that his previous IT provider, he felt that he was holding something over his head, like he had some kind of power or something that, he couldn't get at. And so, yeah, there's another one, a great guide to selling managed services that Jim just put up there. I think it's imperative if you want to maintain good clientele, and also part of this Getting Naked book is that the reason the guy never had to sell is because he got so many referrals from his current clients for the way he acted with his present clients that he never had to actively sell. So that's another thing to keep in mind, that as you're open and honest and telling people, I told this guy, I just assume teach him everything I know. Because if I could teach him everything I know and he can become self-sufficient, we can do bigger and better things at his office. We can do much greater things than he even imagined if I don't have to tinker around with the little stuff. He can take care of all that stuff. So good points, Bob. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Yeah, so my point my next point here is relationships. Everything comes down to your relationship between you and your client, and so you have to make that fruitful. You have to make that good and lasting, and you don't have to be best friends, but if you're going to be showing up at his place of business frequently, you need to go outside the bounds of what you do normally and have some kind of a deeper relationship. So getting into the scripting part, if I'm going to decide to spend some time on the phone or pull a list out and get together with some new thing that I want to share with people, or just pull out my database and start calling people, then I'm not necessarily going to come up with a script, because there's nothing worse than having, you know, Joe Smith from the merchant services account call you on the phone and have him read a script to you. It's boring and dull, and you don't want to listen to that. So what I do is, if I decide I'm going to start talking to people about business continuity and disaster recovery, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out a piece of paper and I'm just going to create bullet points. And those bullet points are going to be a reminder for me of, you know, what I'm going to talk about should I start engaging somebody on the phone. And talking on the phone for me, getting past the gatekeepers, the way that I do that is when I call up a company and if an admin picks up the phone, then I basically say that, hi, my name is Jeff Adzema. Today I'm representing HP, and I have something for your IT manager. Please speak to them. And usually, or if I say I'm representing HP or representing Microsoft, and I don't feel like I'm lying there because I am both a partner of Microsoft and a partner of HP, I can usually get past the gatekeeper and get into speaking to either the IT manager or the next level up. And at that point then, I start dealing with my spiel. I ask them what they have and if they have a business continuity plan. Business continuity is big here in San Diego because of we have lots of natural disasters. Fire is a big thing out here. So it's a good way for me to get in the door. I'm kind of at, you know, there's not a whole lot to really talk about. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to share with you what I do and how I do it. Or if anybody else has anything to put in there, please pop in.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you need to do if you're going to start calling people is, what is the goal? You need to have an idea of what your objective, and be flexible because it can change. You know, to me, there's kind of two types of goals you can have in calling somebody that you don't have a relationship with. One is, and I'm one of those, I'll pretend to be macho for a moment and go military here. One is just your average recon mission. You know, that's where all you're looking to do is just to get the name and contact information of the organization, because in a lot of cases the contact information may or may not be accurate. So it could be a question that you talk with the gatekeeper and just say, hey, look, you know, hi, I'm such and such from so place. We have an event, and you should have some reason to call that's giving value to them, because if you're just calling and saying, hi, I want to pester somebody there, can you give me their name? But if you do something along the lines of, yeah, we're having an event, a luncheon event, and we'd like to invite the right person, so we're just looking for a name.
Bob, let me hop in there for a second.
Sure.
On events, that disaster recovery event that we did last week was a great excuse for me to invite people over to my house for dinner as opposed to trying to sell them a shiny new mousetrap. And it was a great marketing push because I was able to invite people to a free event. I'm not trying to sell them something. We had good food, drink, well, at least the folks that attended locally. Bob, thank you for buying our beer. But it was a great way to have an event and a reason to call.
Yeah, that's one of the big things. Is you have to move away from selling. You have to get selling off your mind if you're going to present to people or develop the relationship with them. If you get selling out of your head or out of your mind and just talk to them in a natural type of way, you're going to get a way farther along. Once you start trying to sell, big turn off. So, and to reiterate what Bob was saying, you know, you definitely need to have a plan in front of you on how you're going to go about that.
Jeff, I think a lot of people are hesitant to share too much in the conversation, give too much away. They feel like they're going to be doing consulting for free. But the reality is if you're giving them enough information for them to at least understand what you're proposing to do, they'll see the value in it. And if they want to do it themselves, if you can give them enough information in a 10-minute phone conversation or in a an hour-long seminar or workshop for them to be able to go and implement their own disaster recovery process, that's fantastic, because that's going to be a huge opportunity for you to fix it later, which takes 10 times longer than doing it right in the first place.
Yeah, I never have a problem with feel like I'm giving away too much information. I think that you hit the nail on the head there. And also, so be it. Even if they do do it all or figure out how to do it themselves, maybe they'll just pass the information on to somebody else that, hey, I talked to this guy, Jeff Adzima. He told me exactly what I needed to do. Why don't you give him a call? You never know what's going to come out after that.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that we did with the calling is we recently did we kicked off a new process where we're identifying about 20 customers or 20 potential customers, and what we'll do is kind of a Robin Robbins MSPU, and there's nothing proprietary about it, but we first, and literally what we do is I have a guy who, our sales marketing guy, and we chose a geographical area that has a number of companies, and we do what was called the parking lot test. We literally just drove around and looked to see which parking lots were full during the business day. And we identified about 20 of them in that particular area, and then we have a very short phone call where we simply try to identify the name of the individual who will be responsible for IT, so that we can address material to them. And the phone call is no more invasive than that, because we want to invite them to an event. And we do monthly luncheon hours, so we've always got an event coming up. Then we send them 2 letters. And the letters are simply introduction. We do a letter and then a postcard, excuse me. And yeah, Google Maps Street View, good point, Scott. And then we finally follow up with a personal invitation on the phone call. And we've done this a couple of times, and we've ended up getting about, out of the 20, let's just say 25, we end up getting about half a dozen, 6 to 8 on average, names, contact addresses, and email addresses, and permission to put them on our newsletter list. And we end up getting about 2 or 3 usually that rates some kind of follow-up conversation. And the total expense for this is, 10, 20 bucks.
Nice.
And so that works for us very nicely. My concern with calls is that if that's the conversation, then it's based on whatever's going on at that moment in time. If that person's busy, you're not going to get much information. If you call them on a day where everything's working, they're not going to be terribly interested. But then if a week later everything goes, pardon my French, to hell in a handbasket, if they don't have that information, if they're still not connecting with you, they're not necessarily going to remember those guys who called. So I always like to have some kind of strategy that goes beyond that initial call.
Yeah, it is a very tough thing to do. If you're going to get into the calling mode, you need to have a process and a plan just for calling. You should definitely have a repetitive calls that are done over, like set aside, in 3 months I'm going to do this calling, and I've got 500 names, and it's a process, definitely. I've worked with in the past with Cisco and Microsoft. A lot of those didn't pan out, so that's why I started doing it on my own. But yeah, you definitely need to have a plan and a purpose and follow through on all that kind of stuff. But go ahead.
I do think it's something that if you set the information sites low, meaning that you're just looking to get that initial contact and get the name and send an invitation or whatever, this is something you can get an intern to do. As long as they have a personality.
Right. Yeah,
because all
exactly.
that person's looking to do is to make sure that you send the right information of an invitation, not a sales call, not a sales pitch, just you get the right person to send the right information to.
Yeah, and just a little note on that. I learned a long, long time ago that you need to hire the attitude, not the technical capability.
That's a good point.
And you can always teach technical information. You can always teach service. You can always teach everything. You cannot teach an attitude.
Cool.
Anyone with teenagers knows that.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah, like Mike's +1 comment, we've got a lot of business that way. Again, I'll get back to that whole thing about how most people see IT people as jerks. The more that you can do of, yes, I will give you this information for free. Think of how much I'll give you if we actually have a business relationship.
There's a perception that as IT people, there's a perception that we're unpersonable. It's either because we're explaining things in too technical verbiage and we're talking over their head, and that's just arrogant, or we're dismissive because we don't know how to parse it down and explain things in a less technical way, and then we're just arrogant. So which one are we at any one given time? And that's why it's so key to pick somebody who's got the right attitude and the right customer service, hand-holding sort of love for the people, and you can teach them how to fix it.
Yes, TJ, some of us are just jerks, okay? Why don't you just put my name on it, okay? If you guys get a chance, take a look online. I think that there's some on YouTube that's also on Netflix, The IT Crowd. It's a BBC series about an IT department. It is so freaking spot on in terms of stereotypes. You know, they speak British, so, you know, yeah, there's a translation needed. But it is, yeah, it's all on Netflix. Great series. Great series.
Funny.
Yeah, Nick Burns. Yep.
Yeah, somebody somebody a while back, I saw a question pop through. I forget who asked it, about probing questions. Somebody wanted to know, you know, what type of questions they should be asking. What are some examples of probing questions? Just think of yourself as a reporter. You always want to have the who, what, when, where, why, and how. You know, and, you know, a lot of times if you're not getting the types of answers that you want, just, you know, maybe ask it a different way, or a good question is always, how do you see that happening? Or what's your interpretation of that? Or whatever topic you're on, you can just say, just ask people how they feel about certain things. Or, you know, you need to figure, when you go to a client or when you've got them on the phone or you're in front of them at a networking event or something, you need to figure out where their pain is.
Yeah, one thing I'll also add to that is ask questions about their business. Don't just ask questions about their computers and their network, because you're going to come off as a commodities guy.
Well, that's right, yeah. Yeah, you need to develop the relationship first. Absolutely.
And have your website in front of you so you can ask the right sorts of questions. Look for stuff. Look for stuff on their website that you can ask them questions about. Even if it's stuff you already know the answer to, give them an opportunity to talk about themselves. Nobody likes anything more than just talking about themselves.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you see something like, for example, that if you look at the recent news, that for their site, first of all, if there's any recent news that's later than 2007, compliment them on that. But also, and actually, I almost say yeah, because, you know, a lot of sites they don't add anything new. You know, they have that first 6 months where they add things daily, and then nothing happened. You know, but the other issues, if you see something like, for example, that yeah, they've now developed a working relationship with an overseas manufacturer in China. So I understand you know, you can say I understand that you're doing that. That's got to be pretty exciting. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, I see you're doing that. Have you thought about how you're connecting remotely?
Yeah.
Okay. One showing interest in what they've got and what's going on, and the other one is I found a point about you that I think I can sell you on. So the other thing I would also say here, and then I guess we can move on if there are any other questions specifically, is measure what you're doing. And Jim talked about it a little bit, or mentioned in his comments about set aside some time. How many calls did you make How many connections did you make? What happened with them? And also, be conscious of what your approach is. Because whatever you do, at the end of the day here, whatever you do, some of you, things will work better, some of you, things will work worse. Whether it be because of your own personal skill set, the area you're in, the companies you choose, any of that sort of stuff. What works, you should do more of. What doesn't, you should do either less of it or figure out what's wrong and fix it. And if you don't have a good vibe on that, you know, you're going to keep doing the bad stuff necessarily. So.
Yeah, you're basically setting yourself up for failure if you don't, you know, if you don't do that. What is it? What gets measured gets done, gets accomplished. So, and I see, is that you, Jim, who wrote your week on measurement? You know, I don't use ConnectWise to its fullest extent either, but they do that whole sales and marketing piece is a great way to just put the information in there and just make little notes, even if you don't use it to, you know, generate turn them from a prospect to an opportunity and an opportunity to a sale. If you don't do all that, you can just put the prospect in there and keep notes for yourself to identify that, and that is you're starting a little form of measurement there.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, we're actually not using it to its fullest. We tried using AutoTask CRM. It just was too much of a pain. We recently started using Microsoft CRM. We're not using it well enough, but since the majority of the people who responded to the poll said you're 1-2 person shops, you don't have to you know what you did yesterday, okay? You don't need to get all this anal metrics and all that kind of thing. But if you have a general idea of, I made 20 calls, I made 4 new contacts, of those 4 new contacts, I have 2 appointments, of those 2 appointments, we made 1 presentation or 1 evaluation, of that 1 evaluation, so on and so forth. That's a very simple set of numbers. And it should be relatively simple to put that in play. Yeah, Michael, that's only because it is daunting. We've used AutoTask like I mentioned. I think really more than anything else is you need to find a process and you just need to keep up with it. I think a 1 or 2 person shop, and I could be completely wrong here, I think 1 or 2 person shop, it would be very difficult to do a formalized CRM process and still service your customers. That's just my opinion. But
yeah, I get that, Bob. I completely agree with you. I think as a 1 or 2 person shop, it's really hard to do a formal CRM system. But at the same time, we tend to internalize our CRM system. That is, it's our brain, and that's about it. And when your brain is your CRM system, it is absolutely impossible to scale. I mean, without some form of surgery. So when you want to be able to outsource or offload some of that work, you look at it and it's like it's impossible. If you can develop a system, and even if you only use it, and it doesn't matter. I mean, we're IT guys. We love creating systems. If you can create a system in whatever tool you decide is going to be best, because frankly, you're going to change your mind in a year and use a different tool anyway. Whatever tool you decide you want to use to create that system, once you've got that system at least moving forward a little bit, you see a huge opportunity to bring someone else in, whether that's your wife, whether it's your teenage son who's just finished school and needs something to do with his spare time. There's a ton of opportunity, and you can look at hiring, outsourcing a salesperson. But if you internalize your CRM system, if it's all in your head, there is absolutely no way of getting anyone else to help you out.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. Okay. All right. Any other questions, or I guess we can move on? Oh, the next one. Yes. All right, anyone who hasn't taken a bathroom break, go ahead and do it now. You know.
So Bob, I noticed that I don't know, you got like some different lighting in your office or something. Your hair like went from white to black since the last time we did the.
You think go the other way? all the great. No, that did happen. There's no artificial or whatever because it's all right here. And with my grandkids, it should be going grayer. Jeez.
Yeah, really.
Oh man. So anyway, so as far as web-based social media, if you're looking for all the latest, this versus that, I'm not the guy. But I do want to talk a little bit about what we've done. Here's the thing. Okay, Scott, you want to see a poll on CRM? I think I can do that. Hold on a second. Okay, let's go ahead and do this poll real quick.
You can't select more than one, huh?
But did you see the option for gray matter, Bob?
Yeah.
Okay, while we're doing that, here's basically...
D-Base 4, Jim, you got to get out. We're in the 21st century here.
Oh, jeez.
I like Michael's hobbled together crap.
The Amish people about a few miles down the street help us out too. Here's the thing. I am a big believer in being as lazy as possible. Okay? So when we talk about marketing, when we talk about communicating, our whole goal is to be as visible as we can be, but to use the same material over and over and over again. So what we do, okay, it's interesting. It's kind of spread out. Okay, I'm going to try to create a whiteboard here.
Now, when you say Outlook, are you talking about like the BCM, Business Connection Manager tool, or?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna split between the two.
Okay.
So, all right. A yellow sticky note should be there. Yeah. Scotch specialty.
Colors now too, Jeff.
Okay. So here's what we do. Is we have blocked Facebook, LinkedIn, those are the things that we're currently using. Oh, now we'll actually go. Postcards, and by that I mean lectionaires and okay, that's what we do. And the last one we're just no matter who you talk to, everybody's going to tell you, here's your strategy, here's how you should do this, here's how you should do that. The fact of the matter, though, by the way, anybody who wants to put in their own, because this is a whiteboard, so everybody can contribute, so if you want to add your little 2 bits about what you're doing, go for it. I think that works. So what we do is we start with a blog entry. And the blog entry is very much, we try to keep 80% of our blog entries about what's going on, not what we do. Okay? So we try to keep that way. And what we end up doing is then the blog entry immediately, and we use Hootsuite for this, will then post in Hootsuite, which automatically goes out to Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. With a shortcut over to our blog event. The blog article then becomes an article for our monthly newsletter. Okay? Every newsletter article has a link back to the blog article, so we only put the first paragraph or so in, the teaser, if you will. Now, why are we doing it all that way? Because the reason we're doing it is because this one piece of writing, which is the thing that takes the time, is represented to every other one of these methods for people to get information. Okay? So, by doing that, because everybody gets to choose how they want to see stuff, and we're very cognizant of that. If someone just wants to read our e-newsletter, boom, fine, read it there. You'll see the articles. If somebody just does LinkedIn, or if somebody just does Facebook, because you can sit there all you want to and say, my business comes from this place or that place, but the fact of the matter is, your customers get to choose what they use in their social media. We do a fair amount of manufacturing companies, and a lot of them are barely getting into the whole, we should have a web page. Thankfully, they're not that bad. But there's that. Scott, do we do a paper newsletter? Absolutely not. No way. What we do, though, is we put together a postcard every month. And that postcard, we have a mailing list, and I think it's right now about 200 or 300 companies that we've selected, chosen, whatever. And they get the monthly postcard. And the postcard talks about our monthly lunch and hour as well as some other topic we think is of interest. Okay? So what ends up happening is this essentially gives us a huge, relative to our size, a huge distribution network. So if we meet somebody, so for example, I was speaking about now he was not a dentist, he makes more money than endocont, whatever the heck he is. I call him dentist. I've got his email address, so I go into constant contact. Well, first of all, I send him an email, thank you very much, blah, blah, blah. I go into constant contact, add him, and send the latest e-newsletter immediately. You know, in my email that I send him, I say, hey, thank you very much, I'm taking the liberty of. You're welcome to drop out of the newsletter if you don't want it or anything along those lines. Okay? Now, what that does is this gives me a way that now I'm going to touch this guy, which, okay, that sounds bad. I'm going to connect with this guy in his office every single month with a newsletter. And this gives it a great way of being able to follow up with whatever that initial connection is. And to me, that's critical because how many of us have the networking event and we meet someone from the networking event, maybe we get an email from them the next day, but that's it. This way we've got a connection methodology or connection mentality there that actually goes a little bit beyond that. Now, Scott, I think it was Scott who made the mention of a paper newsletter is not spam. Absolutely correct.
Postcard.
Absolutely correct. Yeah. Yeah, the postcard works very well for us. So what we do for the postcard is we do two topics. We do one topic where we just say something like, back in disaster recovery, have you done the following? Here's a checklist. If you've seen Robin Robbins' programs, they're similar as far as the idea or the goal. And then in addition to that, we also talk about our luncheon, our monthly luncheon hour that we do, and there's an invitation there. And then what we do is we will send, if you're on that list, you're on that list for a year. And then a year later, whoever was on that list, as of like right now, I think we do it in May. So in May 2012, we sent a special postcard to everybody who was on the list as of May 2011 saying, hey, we'd love to keep sending you this postcard. Please let us know if you'd like to keep receiving it. And if they don't respond to it, you're dropped off that mailing list and we keep going and we rebuild it again. Okay? The total cost for doing all these things, the blog is what, $100 a year for hosting, something along those lines. We go through GoDaddy. We use Constant Contact for our newsletter. That's $40 a month. And literally our last newsletter was our 50th newsletter, 50. So we keep doing that. And our newsletter goes out, like right now we're 2,300, 2,400. I don't know about LinkedIn as far as contacts, or it's in the hundreds. Facebook fan pages, we've got those, blah, 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 blah. But the total cost, though, is about, if you include the postcards, about $200, $150, $200 a month. Okay? And it's real easy to go and repeat it each month. That's critical. I'm a big believer, and this is part of the issue, that I don't like people. I don't like talking with them. I don't like dealing with them. Right? And so we don't go with we're going to go do a big sale or anything along those lines. We like the slow and steady. If I call somebody and I catch them, I don't know how, like I said earlier, I don't know how good they're going to feel, how bad they're going to feel, whether their IT is perfect then, blah, blah, blah. And that's just, I think there's just too many variables. Whereas if we contact them once a month with our newsletter and once a month with our postcard, and actually we also send a lunch and hour invitation to most people, that's 3 touches a month, 2 of which they're welcome to opt out of. And we're doing that without breaking a sweat. And we've had people who have said, yeah, I've been getting your postcards, and today's the day it just hit us. It was the right topic, or today we got hit by something, and I remember your postcards. Definitely has happened. And again, we're talking a couple $100 a month. And the majority of that is the postcard. Yeah, drip marketing. Drip marketing. And in addition to that, we also do lunch and hours, and I know Scott's going to talk about events. But one of the things we do for our lunch and hours, and again, I think we're in our 4th year of doing that. We have, although Scott, yes, I am a drip. Okay, come on. The lunch and hours, we're pushing them on YouTube now. And if you've seen them, you know that they're not made for YouTube. But they're up there. Okay, Sean, real interesting point. You don't find it time-consuming to come up with interesting topics. No. First of all, plagiarize. Absolutely plagiarize in the sense that refer to other articles. So, for example, I'll give you 2 topics. I think we've done the blog entry on one, and we're going to be doing another one. 2 topics this week, or just this week. That Facebook email address. The thing where Facebook just suddenly switched everybody's email address to a Facebook address. That's 2 paragraphs. Find a good blog page that someone else has written it better and all that, and just refer to it. Because the idea is not, I must be great. The idea is to educate the people that are going to your site or that are listening to you. And if you educate them by pointing out something else, great. Microsoft has, it's not unusual for Microsoft to have specific announcements. You've got, for example, they just made Office 365 free for schools. Don't know if we've written the blog entry yet, but we're going to. Or you could have issues such as, Microsoft's Surface. And it doesn't have to be you being the genius. You're the one who's pointing out you should be interested in this. So from that aspect, I truly think that a lot of these blog articles can be done relatively quickly. So, but you've got to be consistent, because if it's like, a bird feeder. The worst thing you can do is leave a bird, is fill the bird feeder over and over and over again and then stop for a month. Because then the birds stop coming, they'll stop paying attention, all that good fun stuff. You keep going. Every month you do this process. You keep that going, because there's so many resources out there. I'm not sure people are going to pay attention to you if you're not. Do you think business customers care about such techie stuff as Office 365 being ever? Here's the issue, Ed. Some of them should be interested they don't know it. And if you can communicate that fact, why would a small business owner care? You know, Office 365 being free for a school. Would a non-school person care about that? Maybe not. You know, you're not always going to bat 100. But then the other issue would be, why would someone care, for example, you know, what's the difference between a cloud backup that just backs up, you know, it's basically just a synchronization versus one that actually has retrieval, you know, historical stuff. You know, but you're the guy, you're the one who's gonna translate it. Yeah, Scott, good point.
There's a good reason. There's a good reason, Bob, why Office 365 being free to schools is significant to a business owner, and that's when Microsoft goes and gives their Office 365 software away to schools for free. That means that the recent university and college graduates who are coming out of school already know this stuff. So as a business owner, taking the IT side out of it, as a business owner, if I'm trying to choose a solution, I'd love to have a product or a solution in place that the new hires I'm going to be looking at over the next 12, 18, 24 months may already be familiar with and reduce my training costs.
Yeah.
Now that's not techie. That's business value.
Yep, good point. Another thing that I thought was interesting, CRN had an article pointing out how Apple had changed their website recently, where they used to have on their website Macs are virus free or something along those lines. They recently took that down and they've had that there for years. They took that down and replaced it with something along the lines of Apple, we're very concerned about security, just like you should be. You know, I found that fascinating. So, cool. Yeah. The whole issue, yeah, the business value. What if you go into a company and the only side of your services that you're showing is I can make the thing with the blinking lights work better? Truly, you're a commodity, you're going to be outsourced, and it's going to happen within the next 2 years. Okay? But if you can go in, it's not even to India necessarily. You know, it's happening here. You may get, you know, but if you can go in and you can say, hey, business owner, I saw these things. These are of value to a business owner, and let me tell you why in speech and terms that you don't have to learn what I do, because I got your back. Man, that's gold. Nothing gets migrated to Canada, come on. So, to me, it's put a process together. Understand how you want to be seen by the outside world and do it. If you found this brilliant technical article that you can write, that's great, but are your customers going to be interested in it? So, it's worked for us. We measure it. You know, we maintain a standard right around, we're always right around 20% open rate as far as our e-newsletters go. I've gone to events where someone will go, hey, you're the guys who do that newsletter, or you're the guys who do those luncheonars. We welcome our competition. You know, all of those things. So, are there any questions on this so far? Or any questions in general? Yeah, Hootsuite's a great product. Okay. We got one guy potty break, one guy beer break, and what's going on here? All right, open question time. Anybody got some specific questions? Well, let me ask you, how are we doing? Are we doing good here? This is the first time he actually, the beer he had just ran out. He had to go get more. How's outside services for any sales and marketing. Good question. We've had that asked of us. Let me give you a little background on Simplex-IT. I started it 5 years ago. It was myself and one tech, and added a salesperson about 6 months later, and blah, blah, blah. I, at this point in time, cannot imagine anyone else representing us to anyone else. I am too anal retentive in terms of how we are perceived, which is weird because I want us to be perceived as a really laid-back group. I know so what'll happen is we'll use third parties in terms of like constant contact, the service for us to push our content out, but we won't have them either generate our content or we won't have third party doing cold calls for us or anything along those lines. Within 6 months you had the yes we did, and it kind of part of that was because I really got lucky on some things. But I do want to talk about one thing that was brought up earlier. I forget the way it was questioned, but how do we partner with people? When someone says, someone calls us and say, "Hey, Bob, we sell widgets, you sell gadgets. Let's get together and work together." That always basically means, "Hey, do you have any business for me? Because I really want your leads." One of the things that we do is we will say, "Here's how we'll support you. How will you support us?" So one of the things we've done, and with some success, is we will say, "Hey, if you want to," and we had some with some people specifically on database issues, some people on specifically higher-end SAN capacity. Let them write blog articles for us. And I said, we will only put it there if there's value. But you write a blog article for us, and we'll identify you as a guest blogger. We'll include, when we distribute it via email, we'll include links to your website, we'll include your logo, we'll give you all the credit's due. But you've got to write it so there's actual value to people who read our newsletter. Since it's only one article out of half a dozen or a dozen, we're not giving them full, you have full reign over it. But that's a way that we can go to that company and say, "Okay, here, we're working with you. We're giving you some value. What will you do for us?" And that's worked for us in a positive way. Okay. Yay. Other local associations. Yeah, Carolyn, good question. Absolutely. Actually, there's a couple of chambers here where we basically just say, "Hey, you want the article, go ahead and publish it," and they've done so. Any time, and I stress this, any time I can be put in a place, or someone in my organization who can be put into a place where they are perceived by others as an authority, I am there. And so I don't go to networking events anymore because networking events don't give me the ability to be seen as an authority on something. And plus, I really don't like them. But if you give me the opportunity to speak in a networking event, I am there. I'll buy the meal. It's going to be cheap. I'll do whatever. Because the whole idea is I want people to come away thinking that A, this company, we are authoritative, and B, we're easy to get along with. We play nice with others. So, yeah, and audio recording transcribes. Yeah, I've actually been using Dragon, simply speaking. It does actually a pretty good job. But absolutely, if anybody has...
I've tried Dragon before too, but I find I have to slow down to Dragon's. I mean, he's as fantastic as Dragon has gotten over the years. I find I have to slow down to Dragon's ability. A lot of the time, I want to get more out, and I actually just will plug in my Android phone to a charger in the car, hit the record button. I will blabber on about the client I just left, the issue they were having, how I fixed it, and then I'll hand it over to somebody else to get it transcribed. I'll do some quick edits to take out all the swear words. To a marketing person who just really is just going to turn it into a marketing piece and make it sound good. And I can literally go from a 10-minute rant in the car about something I've just experienced while I was in the client's office to a well-polished article in 24 hours, and it costs me maybe 30 or 40 bucks for somebody's time to transcribe and to market polish it.
Cool. A couple of comments that on some of the earlier stuff that got put there. One is, yes, there are some third parties that will make newsletter content available to you and to them and to other clients. To me, that's abdication. The whole point that you want to, TJ, please unbolt yourself. I mean, come on, it's almost like you're yelling without yelling. It's like passive aggressive typing. But the thing is that not only are you sharing information, but you're sharing what you do and who you are. Put your personality onto that. There are probably people who, once they get to know you, think you're a nice person. Put some thought into how do you want people to perceive you. And by you, I mean your organization, but again, it's 1 to 2 people for the most part. So do some personality, because you can find blog articles to link to that are of interest, that you can do that for free, and they'd appreciate the links because they like the traffic. So if you can, just write a paragraph or two, go subscribe to, probably we're all inundated with the stuff in our inbox anyway. Pick out a couple of topics that look important, add a paragraph or two describing, do it verbally, like you're saying, but get you out there, because that's as much as anything what you're selling. And preach it. Oh, jeez. Can I have an amen? Please, get it. Anyway, again, put together a process. Measure it, see what it's costing you both in time and commitment and all that kind of fun stuff. And then just do it. Have some fun with it. One other comment I'll make on an earlier thing as well. 2 aspects. One is, what's the goal? Whenever you're talking about marketing, whenever you're talking about communicating to the outside world, what is the goal in terms of what do you want people to know about you or to see or perceive about you? Do you want them to know that you're good technical? Do you want them to know that you're approachable? Whatever. And whatever you're doing as far as blogs or marketing or whatever should be aimed towards that destination. Okay? Focus. Focus on where you're going. And then the other thing is, kind of gets into that be yourself. Some people love Toastmasters. Those are great. Some people, chamber events, I'm not crazy about that as far as developing the personal skills. I love the theater idea. I'm actually, and this is probably figure this out, I'm actually a Second City graduate. I don't tell, it's really, I graduated like 8 years ago or so, and I've only been confessing to it relatively recently. But that's helped me deal with people and talk and interact and all that fun stuff. Theater, but then the other one I'll also give you is user groups. And because user groups are a great way for technical people to get up and present to an audience that is just like you. So they're used to somebody who's not the most cool cucumber. They're not, they're there to get your technical information. They're there to share that. It's a great way. It's not as structured, and you don't have people. It's a little easier with your peers. But I suggest that as well. So anyway, any other thoughts or questions or whatever? Because otherwise we can move on. Okay. Yeah. You gotta watch out, because if you go to too many events, you end up being the president. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Then let me.
There is a question.
Yay. Scott.
Hey guys, thanks Bob. Scott Kendall here from MSP. I'll give you a little bit of background and why I told Bob I wouldn't mind doing the event side. I spent a number of years with HP and was getting a little tired of working. This is back in sort of a little mid-90s. Got a little tired of working with them, and I got a call from a company out of Missouri. I'm actually based in Canada, so I got an invitation to come down for an interview with a company called SkillPath. You may or may not be familiar with. They're the largest single training organization in North America. They put on over 40,000 training seminars a year, which if you think about it is like 10, 15 a day across the country. So I spent about 18 months working with them. I did 155 North American cities in 18 months. Kind of felt like a rock tour, but without all the glitz, glamour, babes, or booze. So we really enjoyed it. What I really learned more than anything else is how to command the room, how to stand at the front and get the attention of how these guys make their money. And I mean, they charge $200 or $300 to attend these one-day seminars, but really their money was all at the back of the room. It was selling the books. It was selling this, at the time it was the CDs, all this sort of stuff. So all the training I was doing was primarily Microsoft Office stuff. So we'd do a one-day, 8-hour course on everything you need to know about Microsoft Excel. Exciting stuff, I'm sure you can imagine, but at the same time, it was a good opportunity for me to really get my feet wet for about a year and a half, standing at the front of a room, commanding an audience, talking to a group, and getting them to buy in to your concept and to your idea. And we translated that to basically a marketing model within our business. We do these seminars, these workshops about once a month. And again, I'm based in Canada, so I don't know if anybody else is on the call is in Canada, but I'm sure this translates really well, across the border as well. And we just will pick a topic, regardless of what it's going to be that particular day. Hey, Doug. We will pick a topic, and we'll send out, all the sort of standard marketing material beforehand and let them know, hey, this is what we're going to be talking about. Our goal really is to get people in the room and to show them that we know what we're talking about and that we can answer questions. And more than anything else, it's a controlled meet and greet. We do give a lot of way of information. Like I said earlier, if we give away enough information for somebody to think they can go back to their office and develop their own business disaster recovery plan based on just what we've given them in a seminar, fantastic, let them, because as soon as the disaster does strike, our phone's going to be ringing off the hook because, we didn't account for this, we didn't account for that. Well, the whole building's quarantined, but all of our backups are sitting in the server room, stuff that they just don't think of themselves, stuff they don't do. So I had made some notes. I guess the advantage of going last is you get lots of time to write down notes from other people's presentations, right, Bob? So we started with Jim with mailing lists. Fantastic. Use your mailing list to complete the call-in script that you learned from Jeff. I don't like the idea of scripts. I don't think any of us do, but there is definitely some sincere value in having some notes written down about what you want to talk to that client about. We always make sure that we have their website up in front of us, and we give them a call and we say, we're putting on together a short seminar. I'm going to pick on Jim and say we're putting together a short. It's a lunch and learn. It's going to be an hour and a half. It's going to be 2 hours. We're going to talk about business disaster recovery planning. We want to give away as much information as we can and help you be aware of what you need to know. I'd say on average at a typical lunch and learn seminar, we get between 10 and 25 people come out. Anything more than that, and you aren't able to connect with people the way you need to. Anything less than that, it's not necessarily cost effective as far as paying for the lunch and paying for the meeting room and that sort of stuff if you're having it wanted in an actual conference room. Host our lunch and learns on our format as well. And I suppose that's something we should be looking at, especially now, of course, that I see how easy it is. Thanks, Bob, for the demo here. This is definitely pretty killer. Here's something you really need to be aware of in advance when it comes to lunch and learns, webinars, seminars, all sort of stuff. You should expect to spend about 10 times the amount of time you're going to spend in front of them, that is 10 FaceTime at work. And now 1 hour or 2 hour workshop, don't be surprised. You need to spend between 10 and 20 hours depending on your designing your materials, creating your PowerPoint presentations, which I don't suggest on heavily, making the phone calls, collecting the list, confirming it, all that stuff. I'd say 10 to 20 hours is probably the minimum. Now, of course, as you get better at it, as you have more experience at it, as you've done it a dozen times, it is going to get easier, and you're going to come up with systems that work really well. But yeah, guys, it takes a long time. Jim's saying he spent 3 months preparing for last Thursday's disaster. Does that mean that you've got 2 months prepared for the next one then, Jim?
I'm going to do one more in the fall on October 18th on IT Spin, but it started, well, back when we had the discussion on one of the discussion lists on SSDs with Philip Elder, and that was in March, I believe, and then ever since then, getting StorageCraft to come on board, marketing the event, calling Philip up in Canada and getting him to sponsor along with us, and likewise with Bob, and it takes a long time.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. One key that we learned early on, and I'll share this with you, get vertical and get rich. Guys, if you can focus on a specific vertical, if you can choose a specific vertical that you want to attach to, it is so much easier to get them in the room, so much easier to develop material that's going to be specific to them, so easier to talk to them. Really fantastic, really get vertical is so valuable. It means when you pick up the phone and give them a call, you can say, hi, Mr. Lawyer, I met you once at an industry event. I met you once at a Board of Trade event. I'm not sure if you remember, really, but, I want to be able to invite you up to a workshop that we're putting on. And here's one that I find works really well, and you can steal this all you like. We recently a similar solution to this for one of our other clients who's a competitor. And we want to show you the benefits that we were able to deliver to them, and see if you may be able to benefit from it as well. Nobody likes to hear that their competitors are more technologically advanced than them, or that they're moving forward and they're not. Nobody wants them to feel like they're being left behind. So that's a really good little tidbit to throw in there as well. When you're doing your actual presentation, really try to avoid lengthy PowerPoint presentations. Keep it as interactive and communicative as possible, just like the Bob Self has put on today. You really want to get as much feedback as questions from people as possible. You want them really interacting with you, because that's what is the beginning of the conversation. And the real value is at the end of your speech, at the end of your hour or 2 hours, you want them coming up to you and saying, listen, I have one more question that's really specific to me, and I didn't want to mention it in front of everyone else, but I'm wondering how it affects their scenario. Beautiful. That is exactly what I want everyone in the room lining up behind them to ask you a very specific question about theirs as well, because that means they've got their interest, and that means that you can then on that those details. I'm trying to remember at the same time, guys. Yeah, +1 for EMIP, absolutely. Michael Gerber, but the EMIP talks about getting vertical and the value in it. Work with other professionals who sort of tandem workshops with lawyers, accountants, business coaches, those sorts of guys. We did one on compliance, legal documents and compliance for email with a lawyer, and we were able to share the resources and back and forth questions on one another. We found it work really well. So consider that as well. Work with other professionals, lawyers, accountants, bookkeepers. You want to do a quick 2-hour to get them all QuickBooks. You want to do an hour on email compliance and security. Bring in a lawyer, bring an accountant, bring a bookkeeper, bring a business coach. You want to do one on marketing. Tell everybody else how to use the CRM you're not yourself. Bring in a business coach. They'll help you preach the value of that particular. So it also means you get a half a second to take a breath, which when you're presenting on your own, you don't get to do. So having somebody else having a panel type discussion is so much more valuable. Always target the C-level. Try not to like the administrators and the secretaries. Bob said earlier, he made a comment. He said, that I'm inviting the right person. It's a really nice way of saying, I'm not inviting you, I want your boss. Because the person you get on the phone is gonna be making the decision ultimately. Bob said this as well. Dan would pay for the lunch. Spend $100, spend $150 buy lunch. Everybody, you kind of need to. There's so much value there. Topics for accountants. These are lively and exciting people. One we did on accounting, we actually did on security and payment terminal systems. We touched on the security side, and they touched on the payment terminals, and we actually got a payment terminal company to come in and talk to us about it as well. Right, Bob, I'm quoting Bob, but I'll say it again for you, Michael. I'd like to make sure I'm inviting the right person. I'd like to make sure I'm inviting the right person. That's Bob's wording, so there you go. Given the amount of time, what's the ROI? I'd say we're looking at about a 50% takeaway from the finished workshop or seminar. So if we get 15 people in the room, we're making 7 or 8 sales. That's what I mean by takeaway. Is 50% of the room is going to, at some point in the next 6 months, have a spend. So yeah, I mean, it takes 100 phone calls to get 50 people in the room, and but if 15 people turn into 7 or 8 sales, that's 7 or 8 out of 100. That's a much higher number than you're looking at with, say, your traditional email marketing, like that. Panel discussions hold the most value. I think I mentioned that as well. We've found some success, some additional success in starting really early. We do a workshop or a seminar that starts at 8 a.m. and goes until 10, or goes until 9:30. So we usually do an hour or 2, and we try to start them early, and that way they're back at their desk by 10:30, 11 o'clock. We're not stealing their whole day. We don't do them on Mondays. We don't do them on Fridays. We had some success in working with vendors and getting them to come in and go and then spring for a product that's part of not for resale, like a door product. Did one with Lexmark, and they gave away 3 really color copier or printer units. They were about $400 a piece. They gave them away, but they were able to do a demo on the units, and why they were valuable. They even brought in a comparable and a comparable brother unit. They were able to show people why the Lexmark had the advantage. So it was good for them. It was great for us. We didn't make the sales. The sales were Lexmark direct, but it meant that they now saw us as an authority. I think that's all I'd really sort of taken notes about. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to field them and give you an idea. Yes, I did. Jeff, Jim, Bob, and you want to share as well?
Well, let me give you our background, how we ended up doing it. Like I said, we're right now in our we just kicked off our 4th year of every month we do a lunch and hour. And it started out where we literally said, hey, we're getting some pizza and some pop, and we're going to put a projector up on the screen, and we're just going to talk about this topic. Come on down, no big deal. And we were purposefully, we said, if you're looking for a real good, cool, smooth dog and pony, don't come to our meetings. Because that's not what they're about. They're about us sharing the knowledge and the experience that we've got, not us doing some slick presentation. And the reason we did that is because we did not want, we don't have, to somebody else's comment earlier, we don't have that kind of time each month to put a full, smooth presentation together. And so we've chosen a different route. We want to be where every month we're doing this event of a different type or a different technology or the like. And we started out with like 5 or 6 people who showed up. And we said, great. We ordered pizza, so the total cost, it was like $50, if that. And we went on, and we finally started growing, and we got to the point where we couldn't have it here. So we chose a cafe down the street, and the cafe is it's a non-profit place that actually gives people with, I hate to put it this way because it's going to sound incorrect, where people who are mentally challenged, it's a place for them to develop workspace skills. So it's a great. It's a great place to support, nice food, all that good fun stuff. And we've been there now for nigh on 3 years or so. And the cost is still relatively low, but now we're the guys who have that monthly luncheon hour. We're the guys who every month we're there with that topic. We'll tell you what we think. We're going to show you, Windows 8. We're going to talk about what security levels are. When do you replace broken or obsolete equipment, so on and so forth. And that's worked very well. When we're meeting with clients for the first time, we can, again, getting back to that, we love to share. This is a great example for us to say this is how we share. So it's been a cornerstone of our strategy now for 3 years or so. Costs us, as far as actual hard dollar expenditures, $200. We're now on average we have between 20 and 25 people attending. And I don't care who attends. Our competition attends, great. Unemployed people, students, great. The gatekeeper as opposed to the president, great. I don't care. And
a lot of the folks that attended the disaster recovery event were local competitors that are also comrades and people that I go out and talk numbers with and have lunch with as well.
Yeah. So.
Tony's asking if you've ever had an event that didn't work out, that seemed kind of like a waste of time. Bob, I don't know if you want to speak specifically about something. I can give you an example if Tony's looking for it.
Of an event that went wrong, I can't think of out of the four of us who could possibly have an event recently that went a little on the wrong side. Jim, would you happen to know of anyone who has an event that had its...
Well, rumor has it there was a disaster recovery event where about everything that could have possibly gone wrong did go wrong, and the air conditioner was out, and it was 90 degrees. We had good cold beer that saved our soul, but then right before the keynote that came up from Atlanta, Georgia to visit Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, came on to speak, the power went out in the building, and we had attendees from Australia, Canada, South Africa, all over the United States, and instant disconnect. Stuff happens. Everybody laughed it off. It was absolutely a fun time, and I wouldn't have it any other way. A very memorial disaster recovery event.
Yeah. But the show went on.
Absolutely.
We, that I can't point fingers and blame anyone else but myself for the fact that it didn't go as well as I had hoped. Jim, yours sounds terrible, but at least you can say it was somebody else's fault.
It was all good, and I wouldn't have any other way, and it just added a little spice to the presentation, and then if folks are interested, they can look at the videos.
The one I'm thinking of is early on when we first started doing workshops, I tried to take some material I already had from Excel, a one-day Excel workshop I'd already done, and into a small business owner value seminar. So I invited out about 15 or 20 people. I got probably 6 or 8 in the room, and I did an hour and a half of Excel spreadsheets. And the only downside to it, and absolutely zero business came out of it. 2 of the people were existing clients, and no additional business came out from those existing clients. The 5 or 6 that were in the room that were not existing clients, I never had any contact with related to that event again. The issue was that I had a set amount of information I wanted to deliver. I delivered that information. There was very little interaction. I had an hour and a half, primarily presentation via on-screen examples. I showed people how to put together basic reports in Excel using financial information they'd exported out of their accounting system. The issue was, and I think what I did wrong, in fact, looking back now, I know what I did wrong, is I gave them everything. I said, this is what I want to tell you about. Here it is. This is how it works. Everybody said, that's really good. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's information I'm going to be able to go back to my desk and use. And they did. But there was no there was no reason for them to then come back looking for more. And I think that's really valuable. You need to give them a reason to look for more. Yeah, Tony says no hook. That's probably accurate. Yeah. Now I put together similar workshops. I did literally a half hour on email etiquette. When to and not to BCC. When do you need to reply all, and when do you only need to reply? I mean, simple stuff. But it was the most successful seminar I put on. I got 35 people in the room. We must have made 15 sales out of that, and 3 of them were new MSP contracts.
Cool.
So the stuff you don't imagine is going to be valuable, it is the stuff that people see value in. So you really gotta throw the rock in the bucket keep throwing it, and they're going to hit, and some are going to miss. Learn from your mistakes and move on.
Cool. Yeah, really, you just got to do it.
Yeah, screw it up a whole bunch of times so you know what not to do wrong next time.
Absolutely.
I know in our 15 years we've almost hit the wall 3 times, and it's just part of the process, and I could tell you more about mistakes we've made and successes we've had, but you know what, looking back on it, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind is that whether it's postcards, whether it's newsletters, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, whether it's luncheonars or webinars or whatever you're doing, no one solution is the right answer. And if you're putting all your eggs in one basket and you're only doing an email newsletter, or you're only doing a lunch webinar, or you're only doing one of these things, and any one of them fails, well, you're in big trouble. What about, Bob, what about redundant array of independent marketing? That's the key, right? You need a whole bunch of different hands in the pot. You need a whole bunch of different ways to bring in new clients, because focusing on any one too heavily cost in the long run.
I agree with that. So, one other thing that we do, there's always a question, or some folks will ask the question of whether or not to get involved with chambers. Here's the way we approach that, or other organizations. Again, our goal is we want to be seen as the experts. We want to be seen as the authority, whatever. So that's the first question that I have when someone says, do you want to get involved with such and such an organization? If someone just comes up and says, hey, do you want to join? No. I mean, not quite so bluntly, but usually no, or I don't have a lot of reason to.
Unless you got a speaking engagement. If you've got an opportunity to speak, it's worth it, but if you don't have an opportunity to speak, I really just assume not pay the annual dues.
You got it. You got it. It's all about that. If there's some way, if the whole thing about, well, we'll put you in our newsletter, yeah, great, whatever. But you would give me the opportunity to demonstrate my knowledge and experience to somebody. That's really what I'm looking for. So we're members, we're located between Cleveland and Akron, so suburbia, but only about 20 minutes from either of the cities. So there's a lot of suburbs here and a lot of smaller chambers. And our rule is, we're a member of probably 4 chambers, and the first thing we ask is, number 1, can we get your member list so we can get them on our newsletter? And then number 2 is, where and when can I speak? Or someone in my place speak. And can we get word out about our events? That's it. That's what we look for. If there's other things we can do that help the community, great. We'll take a look at that. But we want to help the community by sharing information. And if we do talk, it's not going to be a sales pitch. It's going to be, let's tell you about what the cloud is. Let's tell you about what security is. Let's tell you about all that sort of stuff. But I also agree very much on what Scott was saying. You got to do it. You just got to do it. And if and it's kind of like we tried the Robin stuff and the MSPU, and if you've got nothing, use them because it's better than nothing. And one of the comments has always been, some of those materials look so stupid. I'd never buy from them. Well, that's not the point, because you are not who you're selling to. You know, and a lot of people will judge, whether it be Facebook or LinkedIn or newsletters or articles or blog entries, you'll judge it based on whether or not you like it. But the whole point is not whether you like it, it's does it represent you first, and then two, does it add value to the people who you want to be adding value for, namely your potential customers. So. Ray, I think here's the fun part. When we started doing our lunch and ours, we literally said, we're going to have pizza here. Who wants to come out and have some pizza? We're going to talk. I think the first one we did was on configuring your email, which just dealt with Outlook configuration. And we had 4 or 5 people who attended, or 6 or 7 people who attended. And it really was. We made sure it's no big deal. We're just getting together having some pizza. So we didn't have a huge PowerPoint. We didn't have, we had some handouts, but even those were like 2 pages or so. We just, hey, call us if you have any questions. So we set the expectation of the professionalism and of the, oh, look at this grand thing. We said, no, if you're looking for that, we're not it. We're not it. Just do it. Whereas if you go with somebody else who's got an established event, they may have expectations of how you're going to present and how you're going to look. Does that make sense?
Bob, I think there's a lot of value to be said for having a really impromptu sort of attitude about it as well, having a we're not the polished event sort of attitude, and that is that the people walking into the room, their guard's down. They're not going in expecting a sales pitch. They're not going in expecting a hard sell. They're going in expecting a comfortable environment. They're a lot more likely to attend an event where they think the environment's going to be comfortable. And they're a lot more likely to ask the sorts of questions that lead to sales when they're in a comfortable environment.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this, that event that we had, one of my customers is a small customer, but he attended the event. He likes beer, and we had 7 12-packs of some tasty beverage, and it was hot, and it was enjoyed, and he doubled his order, and I got a direct order out of that event. And again, it's not a huge sale, but okay, so I kicked in $100 plus donated the space and time, and I've got a direct sale that's monthly recurring now.
Yeah, as opposed to us who did not get beer. I forgot. I
enjoyed drinking your beer, Bob. Thank you, sir.
And Jim, you're making the point about the Master of Ceremonies. That was actually works out well for us too. I will not let anyone. Actually, I did this once, and I'm never going to do it again. Where we were talking about the partnership, where we had somebody else come in and talk. I will not let anyone come in and talk to us at our lunch and ours. I will let them come in and co-present with us. So, in other words, like for example, our next one, which is going to be in July, we will have it's social media. Now, my company, we don't do social media in terms of a selling a profit or selling as a product. So what we'll do is I'll find a couple, and we've done this a couple of years, we're actually changing it around, changing the players, but we'll bring a couple of people online or with us at the meeting, and essentially I'll be the main person who leads the discussion, okay? And so that way it's still my company who's involved and who's running the luncheon hour, and all I have to do is pretty much listen to them and occasionally make comments that makes it sound like I understand why a business owner would care about this point or not this point. And that's working very nicely for us. So what we'll do is if we find someone to partner with, we'll basically say, hey, I'll pay for the lunch, and you come in and you co-present. All I ask from you is you help market it to your customers, your people, so that they can come in and see, get a little bit of see what we're about. And the reason I'll pay for the lunch is, pardon my French, damn it, it's my luncheon hour. I don't want there to be any question whatsoever that you are at a Simplex-IT event. Still going to be laid back, but no, it's my event, not the event of the co-presenters. So, any questions on that?
You make a good point there, Bob, in retaining ownership and being the person that introduces the guest speaker, the guest presenter, the guest panelist has a lot to go that way as well, rather than allowing them to sort of steer the meeting.
Yeah. Cool.
Bob, I'm wondering if you can give us some examples of the other seminars, workshops, events you've done that have been successful. You mentioned you did one on email client configuration, but I'm wondering what else you've done that worked really well.
Okay. Each year we've done one on when is it obsolete. In other words, at what point do you really consider upgrading your equipment? Because we find that's a big question that we get. We also do one on social media. The rest of it, we'll usually do one or two that are on new products. So, for example, we already had one on Windows 8 where we did, Windows 8 tablet, did that about 3 months ago. And we'll have one in Office 2012. So the big ticket items, which, yeah, Scott, you got good. So Windows 8, social media, when is it obsolete? We'll do Office 2012. We'll have that coming up. Cloud, what is the cloud? What is security? We also, what is a network? What are the pieces parts? We just did one, I think, last month was why is my computer so freaking slow? Where we just went through components. Here are the pieces. What's the difference between a slow hard drive and not enough memory? And again, none of those were selling. We literally just said, and here's some things, here's how this works, here's how that works. Disaster recovery versus business continuity. Virtualization. Now, in some cases, you have to be a little bit careful because, like virtualization, that is such an unimportant topic to a business owner. Again, my potential clients. So that's kind of spread around.
I had a job, my first IT job before I got my feet on the ground with my company, where the lady that hired me almost did not hire me because she was worried that I was going to talk technical and over her head, and it's so important to talk on a business level with business folks instead of a technical level with business folks.
Yep, absolutely. And always, always, always have eval forms. So you can see it, always, always, always look at those things within an hour of the meeting being over. So that you can get a feel, because you know what you said, how you said it. You have a feel for what you were like and how, and then you can see what is more important, which is what other people thought of you. Okay? So, absolutely, you gotta have that feedback loop. The other thing I've had a woman at our last meeting. She came and apologized. She said, "I really enjoyed the meeting, but I work at a branch company where our home place already has an IT. We don't have a choice in who supports our IT. So I feel like I shouldn't come anymore because I'm just taking your food." And I said, "Absolutely not. Because first of all, we're here to share information. That's what we're about. But also, you may know someone who talks about needing IT. You may get a different job. There may be a problem, whatever. All we want to do is we want people to walk out going, wow, you guys are cool."
Well, using that event last week as an example, I called on this one person that I met at a networking event, and he was introduced to me, and the person that introduced us is a person that I trust, and I am slack sometimes and didn't get around to calling on him, and I used my little card scan thingy and had a stack of 80 business cards and scanned them all in, got them in my address list. He was one of them. I invited him to the disaster recovery event, and he said, "Well, we do business with Michael Pope, one of my friendly local competitors, and or that's my buddy, and well, you know, I made sure that I invited him as well, and did, and both of them were there. Both of them had a good time, and there's plenty of business for everybody, and if you come across as being a good person, then you're going to get more sales than any other way.
Yep. We've had a situation where we had some unemployed people, especially a couple of years ago, who were coming, and again, saying, "Oh, I'm sorry," whatever. It's like, yeah, come, that's fine, eat, have fun. And we had one instance in particular that I know of where about 4 months later, there was one bloke who was coming, who was unemployed. He got a job, and the company he was working for had an IT need, and he recommended us, and we got the lead, we got the job.
Now, we did run into an issue with an event a year or two ago where it was a little bit more structured. We had a keynote, Dr. Bill Atkinson, the CEO of WakeMed, and there were some people that were unemployed that were standing up and giving their elevator speech about it, and it's something that has to be controlled, and it's something you have to be careful for at careful with at an event.
Absolutely. So let me do this. What I'm thinking, because I think we're starting to run out of time a little bit. And what I'm thinking of doing is, first of all, anybody have any questions on any of this as we go through? Taking that as a no.
Tony's typing something. Oh, we got 2 coming in, Bob.
Okay. TJ, what the first thing you should do? Anybody want to jump on that?
Yeah, absolutely. TJ, get yourself an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and a pencil, and make yourself a map. Write down where your customers are going to come from, what information you're going to share with them, how you're going to get it to them. Just brainstorm and compartmentalize everything that you want to do. Pull it all together in little pieces, and that's really key. Is start being able to look at it on paper and say, okay, these are the first steps.
Well, that one page of paper might be a strategic move, because one of the trusted professors at NC State and the business school recommended this one-page business plan book, and the concept is if it's just on one page, then it's an attainable goal. It's something you can do. It's succinct. Is something that is more probable of getting done than if it's some 50-page business plan out of the Business Planner Pro. Not that that isn't a good program, but get out that piece of paper, write it down, and make it happen.
Who's the author on that one?
Jim Horan, Horan.
Here's the one thing I would say as far as getting started is, first of all, start. Okay, whatever else. And I think you need to set a certain budget of time and money that's realistic. And you just need to keep at it. Look and see what works, look and see what doesn't work. Other question, Bob, are you prepared to share? Absolutely. Actually, if you go on to YouTube, we've got a YouTube channel. We put most of our lunchinars up on YouTube. And I will tell you right now, they're crappy, because the presentations aren't made for YouTube. But they're there, and so we have a presence. Okay?
And it's not 7 years old like the news section of the website of your competitor.
Yeah, absolutely. Social media, if you don't mind backtracking, direct connections between social media activities and new business, absolutely. We have, usually it is actually the newsletter, but we see things that people come to our luncheonar, or they subscribe to our newsletter because of what we put in to the, if you look at what we do, everything we try to do is linked. so that if someone sees us at one connection over here, it is easy for them to take another step over here, and so on and so on and so forth, because we want people to have a very natural progression on their terms over to a relationship with us.
I got a little piano going on.
I'm impressed so far.
One of the things, there's another question on webinars versus live events. In my opinion, live events beat all.
Yes.
And that's just simply because who we're talking to, they haven't quite gotten to the point of buying into webinars being a great communication technique. Now, we've toyed with the idea of starting that in addition to what we do, but we haven't gotten there yet. We just don't have the time.
The real value in these workshops, in these seminars, in these lunch webinars, not the webinar, but the in-person one, is the ability for somebody to come up to you afterwards and say, I have one more question you didn't touch on. It's specific to me, so I didn't want to interrupt. And I always say that at the beginning. If you have questions, by all means ask them. If you think that they're specific to your need, save them for afterwards. I'll be happy to talk to you about it. That's hard to do in a webinar. We're all going to disconnect from this link section and go about doing the rest of our day. Door handle amnesia, Bob called it earlier. Well, you've already got them in the room, and they've got a slice of pizza in one hand and a beer in the other. They are a lot more likely to ask the sorts of questions that they wouldn't have got if they were sitting in on a webinar.
Brian asked about MSP sales and bringing on a part-time salesperson, and I've tried to hire salespeople over the years, and what I found is that for the dozen folks that have come in and out the revolving door, I'm the best salesperson for me, not because I'm better than anybody else, namely because I can tell my story better than anyone else can tell my story. And we're too small of a shop to have a full-time salaried salesperson, or I can't find someone to work. I remember at the time 5 years ago we were doing about $85,000, and this guy wanted $85,000 in salary base plus commission, and it just wasn't an attainable goal. So my advice is to do your own sales, and unless you're a big shop and really have to have that full-time input, I'd have a lot better luck finding technical people than I have finding salespeople. And now we've got 6 employees, and I do my own sales, and that's all I had.
Yeah, Brian, I'll add to that a bit. I'm actually on my 4th salesperson in 5 years. The first one I hired is basically what I call a lazy hire. Essentially, I didn't want to do the interview. I hate sales in the first place, and blah, blah, blah. So I hired the first person who was available. It was a bad idea. And I misspoke. I'm sorry. In the beginning, I said that I hired somebody in that fall. It was actually a year later. It wasn't until I've been in business for a year that I hired a salesperson. Or no, for almost a year that I hired a salesperson. The second person I hired was fantastic in terms of developing marketing, was lousy in terms of sales. She just did not have that instinct to get into sales or the like. The third person I hired was actually my current, so I've had 3 salespeople. The third person I hired has been, I think, a year and a half or 2 years. Yeah.
They're not currently in the room, Bob?
What's that?
They're not currently in the room?
No, he's an idiot. I hate him. No, he's fine. And he's an actual salesperson. There's definitely been some learning curves moving over to technology. His history was audio and all that, but it's definitely working. But what I would say there is that I've gone through as much of a development process as the sales position has. In other words, I know a hell of a lot more about sales. Doesn't mean I know how to do it or I'm good at it, but because the one thing you have to avoid, the one thing you have to make absolutely sure that you're not doing is that you're abdicating. So Brian, when you say the weakness has been MSP sales, bringing somebody in to do that is a Band-Aid, and it's not going to work. Bringing somebody in so that you can get better at understanding MSP sales. That's, to me, that would be the goal. Because you've got to, it's your company. You've got to understand how it's going and where you're going and what's going on with it.
If I can share it for Brian as well, we I just recently finished reading / listening to an audiobook while we were in the car. I'll also put it up here for you. The best IT sales and marketing book ever by Eric Simpson of MSPU. If anybody else out there has read any of Eric Simpson's stuff, this is the roadmap on how to hire, pay a salesperson. It's absolutely spectacular. This guy speaks it in really plain English, super easy to understand. There's a lot of value in that book, and it's available free, so it's worth every penny.
Yep, that's good. It's a good book. And one thing I would say, though, is you don't have to, whether it be this, the MSPU program, the Robin Robbins, whatever those guys, you don't have to swallow it hook, line, and sinker, okay? You can take the pieces and parts that relate to the organization you want to be and make that work towards you. The MSPU process, for example, is way too specific for me as far as, down to the detail, do this, then do this, do this, so on and so forth. But there's a lot of the concepts there that I can use within my organization. Yeah, the 51-step sales process. No. 10 or 15? Yeah, okay, now I'm in there. Or maybe 10. But it's a good starting point.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in taking the pieces that you really like out of that for sure.
Yeah.
Carl Palachuk is another one with a great MSP sort of sales book. If you haven't seen the stuff by Carl Palachuk, his stuff is right up there with MSP stuff as well, and also available completely free. A lot of it.
Yep. Cool. I'm basically about ready to wrap this up, guys and gals. So
hey, thank you so much for hosting, Bob.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, this is an example of what I'm talking about. I spent, outside of sending a couple emails, I spent maybe 3 hours on this thing total. This is not a huge investment of time.
Bob, that's not possible. I spent 4 hours just reading all the replies.
You think I read my email? I have a filter on whether or not beer over IP is part of the message. Beyond that.
One day we'll get it right. But until then, cheers, by gosh, golden nuts in the heavens.
There you go.
Good for you, Jim.
It's not beer, but here's one for Mickey Mouse just for you, Bob.
And here's here's the one thing I would like to ask of the attendees, okay? First of all, if we can get some feedback, what's the next one? If we can get some feedback, and we can just use the news group, because that's, I think, very effective, on work, didn't work, and put together a next one. What would be the next topic? We've had a lot of talk on the board as far as like how do you do ramp ups? How do you do network evals? I'm nothing exciting or special, and I got a wife who can tell you that. Anybody can just say, hey, let's just do this at such and such a day, such and such a time. Get some people together who are willing to share. I think the one thing about this board, I think that these can happen without too much difficulty. Yeah, network evals, whatever. So I would ask for that. I would also ask if these guys, and I know I do, if you've got either, got a second, go LinkedIn with us and recommend us, like us, do things that help us on the SEO side. Subscribe to my newsletter, anything along those lines, because that's a help that we can measure, that we can actually use that help us in our business and all that kind of fun stuff. Don't feel like you have to, but, and put somebody start some conversations on what the next meeting should be about on the message board.
I think TJ just said mail campaigns, and I'm hearing network evals all over the place.
Cool. Let's make it happen. All right, guys. That's it for me. I will take this information and hopefully it will be useful. Would love to hear some feedback as far as whether or not this is worthwhile keeping doing. I think it should be something that can be done on a regular basis, and you know, we'll see what happens.
I'm in. The beer flows on the local area network. I'm good.
Cool. Jim, Jeff, Scott, thank you guys very, very much. You made it real easy.
Looking forward to the next one. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
See y'all later. And stop recording.